Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. I'm Heather Campion, CEO of the John F. Kennedy Library Foundation, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the library and to the 2014 Profile and Courage Awards ceremony. Today, we celebrate the quality that President Kennedy most admired in public life, political courage, in two very distinguished Americans. Please join me in welcoming today President Kennedy's grandson, Jack Schlossberg, Mayor Paul Bridges from Uvalda, Georgia, and Lauren Bush Lauren, who will be accepting the award on behalf of her grandfather, George H.W. Bush. It's now my great pleasure to introduce the chairman of the Kennedy Library Foundation's Board of Directors, who gives endlessly of his time and his extraordinary talents to both this institution and to our country, Ken Feinberg.
I want to welcome everybody here this morning. This is one of the great highlights of the year for this great library, and we're honored to have all of you with us here today to celebrate a very special day. As we begin this ceremony, I want to acknowledge a couple of people who are pivotal, and we're very pleased that they're here today. First, my close friend and a man who gives whatever we ask, his vision, his tireless work, indispensable to this institution, my good friend Ed Schlossberg, and I thank Ed for being here. Many of you don't know this, but it's Ed that designed this Tiffany lantern that we'll be presenting today to our distinguished awardees. And that's just one of the many things that Ed does for us, and I appreciate that. We also welcome Ed and Ambassador Caroline Kennedy's daughter, Rose Schlossberg, is here today. Thank you, Rose. And we are very happy to have Jack Schlossberg, who's the newest member of our Profile in Courage Award Committee and is not shy in our deliberations. And he'll be presenting awards today, and you'll hear more about Jack in a few minutes. I want to extend a very warm welcome to our honoree, Paul Bridges, and to Lauren. And to Lauren Bush Lauren, who will accept the Profile and Courage Award on behalf of her grandfather. And we also welcome Lauren's husband, David Lauren, and Rebecca Miller, who is the partner of Paul Bridges. And we thank you guys for being here today. I think that Mayor Bridges' 3 children have traveled from across the country to be with him today, Paul, Leanna, and Cameron, and we're very happy they could join us today. Thank you. We're also honored by the presence of several members of the Bush family. President Bush's sister, Nancy Bush Ellis, is here today. We also welcome Jamie Bush, President Bush's nephew, and his wife Sue, and Nancy Black, President Bush's niece. I have to read these, I wouldn't know all of this. And her husband, Thomas Black. You've all made this occasion very special for all of us, and thank you. I'd like to extend a special welcome to our current and former public officials who have joined us today. Congressman Donna Edwards of Maryland, somebody who needs no introduction at this library since he's responsible for much of its success, my predecessor and former U.S. Senator Paul Kirk. Where's Paul? Former Senator Olympia Snowe, a member of our committee. Former Governor Jack McKernan of Maine. Former Governor John Sununu of New Hampshire, who was President Bush's White House Chief of Staff. And a special personal thank you to former Transportation Secretary Andy Card, who served President Bush in that role as White House Chief of Staff. Andy Card, I can tell you, was essential to the success of the September 11 Victim Compensation Fund. He was my liaison at the White House. And what Andy Cobb did, I cannot repay him. I'll be in his debt forever. Andy, thank you very much. Ambassador Charles and Sue Cobb, both of whom served in diplomatic posts in President Bush's administration. Thank you for being here. A special thank you to Alberto Mora, who received the Profile and Courage Award in 2006 and is with us to salute the newest recipients. A past winner of the award, Alberto Mora, where are you? We'd like to thank, there you are, thank you. And finally, a special thank you in these introduction of distinguished guests to our dinner chair at tonight's Profile and Courage Award dinner, who helped make this year's dinner an unprecedented success in terms of diversity, amount of money raised, number of people coming. Bob, I've known him for over 60 years. Andy, he's from Brockton. Bob Epstein. Bob, thanks very much. We could not do any of the things that we do without the wisdom, the generosity, the commitment of my board at the Kennedy Library Foundation, the board of directors. I see some of them here today. I want to acknowledge and thank our board members who are with us and for all they do for this institution. So board members sprinkled around this audience, thank you very much. Finally, before introducing our next speaker, I must extend my personal gratitude and the gratitude of the board to the two key people who run this institution day in and day out, and they do it with the type of selfless energy that guarantees success. First, our new CEO, Heather Campion. Where is Heather? Thank you. And the director of the Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum, my good friend Tom Putnam. And where is Tom? I thank them and their staffs for the work that you guys do in making this day possible and making this institution so relevant and important. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the chairman of the Profile and Courage Award Committee, who leads the committee with humor, wisdom, a bit of courage, and a great sense of empathy, I think is a fair word, in trying to deal with all of the committee members who work so diligently to select annual awardees. My good friend, our loyal chairman, I don't know what we'd do without him, Al Hunt. Al.
Ken, thank you and welcome everyone. I know what is on everyone's mind out there right now. It is that did Lauren loan one of her grandfather's socks to Jack? You can find out later if that's the case. First of all, congratulations, Mayor Bridges. Congratulations, Lauren. It is my pleasure as the chairman of the Profile and Courage Award Committee to work with a really distinguished group. As Ken alluded to a moment ago, there are no shrinking violets in this group, which makes it even more rewarding. Most of the members of the committee are here today, and I'd like them to stand as we show our appreciation for their tremendous service to this institution. Jack Schlossberg, Ken Feinberg, Senator Paul Kirk, Senator Olympia Snowe, Congresswoman Donna Edwards, Adam Frankel, Elaine Jones, Martha Minow, and David Shribman. Thank you all. In addition to selecting the inspiring, and I really mean that, inspiring recipients of this year's Profile and Courage Award, we also choose the winner of the Profile and Courage Essay high school contest among high school students. This year, 1,951 high school students representing 49 states, we're going to find the outlier, Heather, Washington, D.C., the Virgin Islands, Canada, France, and Korea submitted their own essays about political courage. Two rigorous rounds of judging preceded the final selection by the Profound Courage Award Committee. Some of our essay contest judges are here with us today. I'd like to ask them to stand as we acknowledge the invaluable service that they provide. I also want to take a moment to express special thanks to the wonderful people of John Hancock, which provides invaluable financial support to the Profile and Courage Essay Contest. Now to the winner of the 2014 contest. Ben Wolman is a freshman at Palisades Charter High School in Pacific Palisades, California, where he's involved in politics and social justice. He saw this contest as an opportunity to address these subjects with perhaps a broader audience than family, friends, and teachers. Little did he realize how broad this audience might be. Ben's a scientist and a filmmaker as well as a writer. He placed second in C-SPAN's student documentary competition with his film called NASA Now. He's also involved in his school's robotics team and a member of the Santa Monica Amateur Astronomy Club. Ben originally wrote a different essay for this contest, but as he continued researching, writing, and thinking about the concept of political courage, and he told me earlier that he actually had finished that essay, he concluded that the subject of his essay really didn't qualify to the standard that he aspired. So he continued searching and found one that truly exemplified political courage. John Morse, in his first term as Colorado's Senate president, less than a year after the shootings in Aurora and Newtown, John Morse risked his political career to lead the passage of a new gun safety measure in Colorado. Morse faced the ultimate consequence of political courage when he was recalled from office last fall in a special election organized by the opponents of the new legislation. I can say since I've been on this committee, I've never seen such impressive essays, and I think Ben was a runaway winner. And I don't know if I'm going to be here, but I want to ask Jack and Lauren, when you start placing early bets on that national office in 44 or 48, would you put some money in for me on Ben Wolman, the high school freshman? So it's with great pleasure that I present this citation, accompanied by $10,000, to recognize Ben's outstanding research and writing on the topic of leadership and courage, as described by President Kennedy in Profiles in Courage. Ben? Still trying to think what my kids were doing when they were freshmen. I don't think we want to go there. Ben's prize consists of a $5,000 cash reward that will be matched by a $5,000 contribution to a John Hancock Freedom 529 college savings plan. Ben is joined here today by his parents, Adam and Eileen, and his brother, Justin. Will Ben's family please stand? Now a word about Ben's nominating teacher. Every student who submits an essay to this contest is required to have a nominating teacher who provides guidance and support during the research and writing process. We call it editors, and sometimes they're our worst enemies, right, David Shribman? But they are invaluable. They are invaluable, and I think Ben would say his teacher was absolutely essential to this. We rely on them to encourage students to participate in the contest and help them submit thoughtful, compelling, and well-written essays. We would like to acknowledge Sarah Rosenthal, who was Ben's nominating teacher, who could not be here today because of family obligations. But Sarah will receive a John F. Kennedy Public Service Grant to encourage student leadership and civic engagement. And now I want to give thanks and a big round of applause to all of our essay participants, their families, and their teachers and school administrators who made this program so successful this year. Thank you very much.
Now it is my pleasure to introduce Jack Schlossberg. Jack, as you know, is the son of Ambassador Caroline Kennedy and Ed Schlossberg, and the grandson of President Kennedy. He just drove in after finishing his final exams, so we can now officially say he is a senior at Yale. Now, you know, some people, after you take final exams, some students worry about what the result of those exams. It's Yale. Jack's not worried in the slightest about those. When Jack is not writing op-eds about our honorees for USA Today and the Huffington Post, he writes for the Yale Herald and serves as a volunteer EMT. He is also our newest member of the Profile and Courage Award Committee. And like his grandfather, he is no shrinking violet. He let all of us know, including the chair, exactly what he thought about generational gaps and things and gender and diversity, and very, very helpful. He has taken on his work with wisdom, with gusto. We are very fortunate that he's willing to serve. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great privilege to introduce Jack Schlossberg, who will present the 2014 Profile in Courage Awards. Jack.
Thank you, Ken. You ever want my criticism on anything, you just give me the word and I'll be happy. On behalf of my family, I join Al, Ken, and Heather and welcome you all here today. My mother usually presents this award, and she would have loved to be here today, but I know she would like to say arigato to all of you for being here with us. The Profile and Courage Award ceremony has always been a proud day for my family, a day when we all came together to celebrate my grandfather's memory, to hear stories from my Uncle Teddy, and to honor President Kennedy's legacy of public service. President Kennedy once said, "A nation reveals itself not only by the men it produces, but also by the men it honors, the men it remembers." He looked to the past, to examples of courageous men and women who made personal sacrifices for democratic ideals, human rights, scientific progress, and love of country, for guidance and for inspiration as he welcomed the challenges of his day. We honor his memory by giving this award. We celebrate courage today in a moment of profound change and challenge in a world gripped by partisan gridlock and inaction. All too often, our political discourse punishes those who are brave enough to take principled stands and attacks those who forego self-interest in compromising for the greater good. But our nation has always needed courageous leaders to lead us forward, for as President Kennedy wrote in Profiles in Courage, it is on national issues, on matters of conscience which challenge party and regional loyalties, that the test of courage is presented. This award honors the politicians who have passed that test in our time. Today we celebrate two courageous men, and we add them to the list of politicians who made difficult choices, and in doing so acted on behalf of the greater good. In 2009, Paul Bridges knocked on every door when he ran for mayor of Uvalda, Georgia. No one's a stranger in the town with just under 600 residents, and Bridges asked for their votes because, as he said himself, he wanted to make his town a fairer and more prosperous place. As mayor, he faced a tough choice when in 2011 the Georgia state legislature passed a law that threatened the local farming economy and promised to separate undocumented parents, children, brothers and sisters from their families. The law authorized police officers to demand citizenship documentation during routine traffic stops. It criminalized housing and transport of undocumented immigrants. It restricted access to public facilities and services for people without legal immigration status. Bridges realized the law would separate families he knew, families that were part of the fabric of his community, and that he would no longer be able to give undocumented friends and neighbors in Uvalda a ride when they needed one. He would have to break with his party and with much of his constituency to oppose the law that he believed was unjust. Mayor Bridges summoned the political courage to do what was right at the expense of his own political future when he joined a federal lawsuit to stop the implementation of Georgia's anti-immigration bill. When his principled stand was attacked by local and national anti-immigration groups bent on running him out of town, Uvalda became the unlikely stage for the national debate over immigration reform. Bridges lost his support, re-election became impossible, but when his term ended, his commitment to just and fair immigration reform did not, and despite his opponent's best efforts, Uvalda is still his home. Paul Bridges' courageous small-town stand symbolizes the type of courage that my grandfather most admired. He wrote, "A man does what he must, in spite of personal consequences, in spite of obstacles and dangers and pressures, and that is the basis of all human morality." It is my honor to present the 2014 John F. Kennedy Profile and Courage Award to Paul W. Bridges.
Good morning. Wow, to be here with people who people like me only see and read about and watch on television. It's incredible to be here. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here. Members of the John F. Kennedy Profile and Courage Award Committee, staff, and distinguished guests, it is a privilege to be here with you. Thank you for this moment. I want to thank my family and friends for being here in Boston for this special day, especially my partner, Rebecca, and my three wonderful, amazing children, Paul, Cameron, and Leah. Thank you for your support. I am truly humbled by this honor. Quite frankly, I'm still in disbelief. I haven't quite recovered from the shock of a young man calling me on my cell phone and telling me that he's President Kennedy's grandson. And I will never forget the intense emotion of that moment when I realized the magnitude of what Jack was offering me. To consider that a Kennedy, a member of the family that my own family loved and cherished and admired and respected, called me forward to recognize me from among true heroes and courageous people. Well, it just goes beyond my ability to comprehend. But I'm here, Jack. Thank you. I was 9 when President Kennedy was inaugurated, and when he laid down the challenge for generations to follow, when he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." How incredible that me, the 10th child of 12, born to dirt poor farmers, was chosen for this recognition. It just doesn't happen. We had a potbelly stove in the kitchen. As a young child, my daddy and my family farmed our 55 acres with 2 mules, old Dan and old Pet. My chores were to feed the mules and the hogs, and we had a single milk cow, but we didn't have indoor plumbing or even running water. But we did have lively conversations, particularly about politics. Daddy was a Southern Democrat and would complain that it wouldn't do him any good to go vote because Mama would be in the booth next to him killing his vote. We were poor but close-knit. I was a member of our high school's first fully integrated graduating class. I saw firsthand our country's institutionalized racism. I witnessed the long-term damage caused by segregation. How fortunate that I have the experience, the power, and the richness that comes with the diversity. It's good to know diversity. In 1999, I met Mario, living in a single-wide trailer in a cotton field with a host of others, and working in the onion fields and baling up pine straw. Though we didn't speak each other's language at the time, we were instant friends, and he remains my closest friend to this day. His youngest, Siklali, calls me Grandpa. And his older daughter, Celeste, is here with us. 13 years ago, Mario moved to the United States with his wife, a 4-year-old daughter, and a 7-year-old son. On their journey, they were held, locked in a basement on this side of the border, with only the clothes on their backs. As a parent, I cannot imagine the terror of traveling through the desert separated from your young children. As with my parents before me, I do understand the passionate desire to make a better life for my children and to make sure that they have a better education and better opportunities than I did, and that they are happy and free to be the very best that life offers to them. While I am honored to receive this award, I know in my heart that it did not take courage to speak the truth, just a profound sense of injustice and the willingness to speak up, and the knowledge that there are millions of others out there who feel the same way. This is all that I've really done, is to speak up, to speak the truth about the unfairness of our current immigration system. I was asked to run for mayor in 2009. We completed 3 years of missing financial audits, installed new computer systems, corrected the city map, and bought beautiful street signs and many other long overdue improvements. The townspeople revived the Old Time Farm Festival. Typical mayor stuff, and for 2 great years, it was great. But that was to change quickly. When the red states began passing their own so-called immigration laws, I could see prejudice raising its ugly head. Georgia passed the law, HB 87, that created criminals out of ordinary people. Grandparents who invited their own children's wife or husband into their homes could be subjected to a year in jail. A son driving his undocumented mother to the grocery store could become a felon. Close-knit, mixed-status families suddenly found themselves contrary to the law. Yes, I spoke out against Georgia's new law. It did not feel courageous for me to tell the truth. Gandhi said, "Even if you are a minority of one, the truth is the truth." After years of condemning the ACLU, I must publicly apologize to them. The law, HB 87, that I called heinous because of its attack on our families, wouldn't have been overturned had it not been for this dedicated group of civil liberties organization, along with the Southern Poverty Law Center. They now have my heart. Shockingly, those attacks continue. My state will not allow undocumented students to attend select universities. Even if an honor graduate has attended kindergarten through the 12th grade in Georgia and the student is undocumented, they have to pay out-of-state tuition. And now the talk is to not issue birth certificates to the babies if their parents are undocumented. How can what I just say not jolt your conscience? There are 2 things I want to leave you with. First, how profoundly grateful I am that you bestowed this national honor, the Nobel Prize of Public Service, on me. Secondly, that we as a nation can no longer leave hardworking, family-oriented, God-fearing people to walk in the shadows or to live in the terror of losing a loved one to deportation. We must allow those who put food on every American dinner table the opportunity of upward movement. We must find a way, and we must find a way now. Dr. King said, "We will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the vitriolic words and actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people." Again, I want to say thank you very much, and it is a pleasure to see you, and it's wonderful to be with you. Thank you.
In 1990, America needed a different kind of political courage. With a national recession looming and a federal deficit that had tripled over the last decade and risen to $200 billion, America needed responsible action from its leaders in Washington. President George H.W. Bush needed to make a difficult choice. In order to solve the problem, he would have to compromise with congressional Democrats and risk his political future. He had promised Americans no new taxes during the presidential campaign 2 years earlier, and he was voted into office on that promise. But he had also promised to serve his country, and he decided that that was the promise that he would keep. Both parties compromised to pass the 1990 Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act, which significantly raised a number of tax rates in exchange for limits on annual discretionary spending. The president who began the year with overwhelming national approval ratings ended it with far less support, and he quickly became the target of attacks from both sides of the aisle. The budget deal enacted responsible and desperately needed reforms at the expense of the president's popularity and his chances for re-election. America's gain was President Bush's loss, and his decision to put country above party and political prospects makes him an example of a modern profile and courage that is all too rare. I know we wish that President Bush could be here with us today, but we are so happy that Lauren Bush Lauren is here on behalf of her grandfather. Lauren is a committed public servant in her own right. She works as the CEO, creative director, and co-founder of Feed Projects, and is the chairman of the board and co-founder of the Feed Foundation, an organization that raises funds and support for the United Nations World Food Program's efforts to feed school children around the world. The Feed Foundation, with its partner Feed Projects, has provided 60 million free nutritious meals to kids around the world. It is my honor to invite Lauren Bush Lauren on stage to accept the 2014 Profile and Courage Award for her grandfather, George Herbert Walker Bush.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you all. This is such an honor for me and for my grandfather and for my whole family. I'd like to start by reading a short message from my grandfather. I wish to send my sincere thanks to the John F. Kennedy Library Foundation and their selection committee for the decision they rendered that led to today's proceedings. I can only hope that the vote itself wasn't too excruciating or too close for the members. I recall how shortly after leaving the White House, the school district board where I used to live in Midland, Texas, decided to name the local elementary school after yours truly. After it passed by a landslide 3-2 vote, it was explained that the 2 dissenting votes were based on the fact that we normally only name things after dead people. At age 89 and 7/8, let me assure you, your kind words really do mean a lot to me. And to receive this award with such an illustrious history and bearing such an illustrious name means more than mere tongue can tell. I am sorry I could not be there in person, but a nasty rumor spread that your menu encompassed a deconstructed study in broccoli. So I have gamely sent a special emissary to confront the florets. Thank you for remembering what our team tried to do those many years ago. One thing is sure, even today, at age 89 and 7/8, my Gampy still has a zest for living. Most of you, I'm sure, have seen his crazy socks. They come in all colors and all patterns. More recently, there was even a YouTube video of him rapping to an MC Hammer song that Jimmy Fallon put together. Even if my grandfather is not quite sure what a homeboy is, he loves that video. It is not hard to imagine how President Kennedy, with his love of skinny ties and passion for life, would have shown much of the same style and panache had he been given the blessing of old age. Of course, we are here to recognize and celebrate a singular act of political courage. Nearly a quarter of a century ago, when politics in our world were very different. I went back and looked at the circumstances surrounding the 1990 budget deal, and I was struck by the many challenges we were facing at that point in our history. That fall, my grandfather had sent 500,000 troops halfway around the world to defend a tiny Kuwait from a lawless and brutal invasion. Meanwhile, he was also helping to engineer the reunification of Germany that October and manage democratic reforms throughout Central and Eastern Europe in ways that eventually led to the peaceful end of the Cold War. On top of that, he was also the second president elected to serve a full term in office without party control in either the Senate or the House. That made progress, any progress, domestically, very difficult. Candidly speaking, my grandfather did not want to raise taxes in 1990, but our constitutional system of governance says that Congress also gets a say. And besides that, he felt he owed the American people action and results. Compromise is a dirty word in Washington today because we live in an age of the perpetual campaign. But once we get back to realizing the importance of actual governance, I suspect this too will pass. While I'm at it, my grandfather wishes to join you in recognizing Mayor Bridges and congratulating him for this much-deserved recognition this year. The fact is, we need more political leadership and courage at all levels of government, and we can all hope Mayor Bridges' personal example of standing on principle will inspire more elected officials on both sides of the aisle. Not lost on anyone, I suspect, is the symbolism of a grandson of a much-admired president of the United States conferring a prestigious award that is being accepted by the granddaughter of another president. Perhaps the fact that we are brought together in this way and on this day to celebrate the ideals of public service with this honor, perhaps, just maybe, the torch is once again being passed, not from family to family, but from generation to generation. There is so much need in our world. There is so much hurt in our world. It is going to take all of us to meet those challenges. But fortunately, we are lucky to have had and to have leaders like John Kennedy, like George Bush, like Barbara Bush. I have to include her, I'd be in big trouble. And Paul Bridges to inspire us and to help to lead us forward. So on behalf of my Gampy, George H.W. Bush, and our entire family, I want to say thank you. Thank you.
Just hearing our various speakers today reaffirms what President Kennedy said, how every single individual in our country can make a difference. And we just saw the examples today, how every single individual can make a difference to our country. Before we adjourn, I'd like to ask Ed Schlossberg and Rose Schlossberg to join Jack on the stage and pose for a photo with Mayor Bridges and Lauren and their awards. Please, everybody, stay seated until we complete this photo op, and then please remain seated until our honorees have left the room, and then we invite all of you to join our celebration at a reception in the lobby outside. Thank you for being here today. This is a great day for the library and for America. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ken. You'll be getting it back.